And I think it's appropriate that we start at the request of Madam President with an update on the city's response to the coronavirus. So, Madam President, not that it needs any introduction, would you like to introduce this item?
Sure, Mayor, thank you. I did put down a few thoughts on this, and as recently as just 5 minutes ago, hearing from a resident and business owner in the city, I think that obviously, as you mentioned, this is on all of our minds, all of our social media feeds, all of the news stations, and I appreciate the communications that have come out of the administration and your office, Mayor, and I just want to use this time to talk amongst ourselves and to allow for this group to, take some leadership and take some roles in this planning, because while we do have experience and successful experience weathering the storm of hurricanes, I think that this is something unprecedented. And, I just would like to make sure that we have all the opportunity to talk about how we can collaborate amongst interagencies throughout the county, throughout the state, throughout the nation. We can coordinate, and then I think most importantly, communicate with our residents and our stakeholders in the city. I'd like to suggest, if we could consider taking something out of the playbook of our national models, is a citywide coronavirus task force, and something that is focused on interagency coordination, where we can all take an all hands on deck leadership approach. And I want to hear what we have in place already internally, but I think we need to take also an external look, including things like coordinating healthcare services and accessibility, public safety, communications, our school district and education resources, the senior centers, and of course, business and economic impacts. And so just wanted to encourage the dialogue as all commissioners, while we each have a district that we represent. I really do feel like this is something that is crossing all, of course, it's crossing all borders, and just see how we can take leadership roles in this, that we can take true action, involve our stakeholders, whether it be the merchants, the chamber, different groups, and just have that conversation here, Mayor.
All right, and I appreciate that. I think the starting point should be, what are we doing? And I know that we've had extensive internal communications going on. We've had Brent Bloomfield, who's kind of been leading the charge with the city facing outward to the various state and federal as well as county agencies. You might want to hear, is Brent here? He's probably talking to someone now as we speak. But Ms. Johnson, do you want to summarize what it is that we have been doing, the roles that different folks in the administration have been playing?
Yes. Good morning, Mayor and members of the commission. We've actually had quite a bit of activities taking place internally. And while Chief Bloomfield is out, I think Chief Matty has been working also in that capacity. So essentially, our role has been in terms of staying on top of what is happening, is coordinating with the county and the various agencies in terms of participating in the meetings that the county has called. We have participated on the briefings that the White House has had, been in contact with representatives from the Department of Health. So as there have been different meetings from various agencies, our staff has plugged into those. We have a number of different groups that are now having meetings. For example, the Florida City and County Management Association is coordinating a conference call meeting for all city managers and administrators. We have Palm Beach County City and County Management Association, who has a conference call scheduled this afternoon at 2 o'clock for the managers. And I think there are a number of other organizations that are organizing different meetings. So we have been plugged into all of those various meetings. Now, our role has been really to get guidance because we're not on the front line, providing the information on what should be done. So we have been gleaming guidance from the various meetings that we have participated in. And where we have gotten that information from the Department of Health, is the lead agency here within Palm Beach County, providing the protocol on how you should go about managing this particular pandemic. Then from a messaging standpoint, our communications director, and you referenced that, has been sending out updates to the public, as well as we have been sending out information from the communications director and the mayor to employees. From an organization standpoint, we had a preparation and response meeting on Friday to talk through various aspects of what should go into a city action plan that we're going to sit with the mayor and have him review that and give us some guidance and direction on what to include and what should not be included. This is a very fluid situation. So while there may be one standard set this hour, by the end of the day, that changes very rapidly. So we're trying to stay on top of that. At the department level, departments have been asked to identify their employees that they deem to be essential and non-essential. In the unfaithful event that we get into a full-blown outbreak and have to just really shut down everything. Who can work from home, who can telecommunicate, how can we keep city operations going? And they are going through that process as well. We're looking at what capability we have from an IT standpoint to be able to have employees plug into our system from home to keep track of operations, where we may need to have laptops provided if they do not have the means and they're in a position to work from home. We're looking at supplies. What supplies do we currently have in stock? Trying to get out front with ordering, and as everyone probably can imagine, ordering supplies is a challenge because supplies have just moved very rapidly. But we have actually put in orders for supplies. So we're trying to stay on top of it, but try to do it in a very organized, systematic way because it's just moving so rapidly and there's so much information coming out, but we're trying to follow the guidance from the agencies that have been deemed the appropriate ones to provide that particular guidance.
And I think the other thing that we have to remember is what the city's particular lane is. I've got a number of emails, maybe you all have as well, prior to last Friday, why aren't you closing the schools? Well, that's not really our call. And so once the school district did do that, we certainly abided by that. With respect to counseling public events, we were really waiting to kind of see what either the county was saying from the public health department or the state. The governor did put out a statement on that, and so we wanted to act accordingly. What I don't want to do is get ahead of the skis as a city and start making decisions that are really in the bailiwick of whether it's the county, whether it's the school board, but we do take the health of our citizens very, very, very seriously, and we're trying to do what we can internally or within the boundaries of the city to protect that, and we'll continue to monitor it. Yes, Commissioner. Madam President.
Thank you. And I appreciate that, and I agree. I don't think we should be getting into the decisions of closing schools or things that the county decides on. What I'm suggesting is that, should my colleagues be interested or through city staff, that we have a framework in place. And I wholeheartedly agree. I do not think we want to, take steps that would cause more issues for other organizations, but you mentioned schools, and I hear a number of schools and programs that are going on where they're preparing meals for the kids and the families who would have had meals at schools. And so do we have someone who is the contact for schools so that we can let our residents know who either don't know about those programs or maybe don't have vehicles to go pick up those meals at those schools? I'm just trying to think of a framework that we can all take a leadership role in making sure that our residents and our businesses are getting the services that they need and the information that they need. I think that Chief Matty had wanted to say something too.
Chief, did you want to?
Yes, sir, if I may. Diana Matty, Fire Chief. This is an opportunity for us to implement the incident command system as we've been training our employees on for the past several years, as we do with hurricanes, upgrading the status of the EOC to a level 3 for monitoring, and really starting to focus all of our efforts in one coordinated fashion. And that's how we do it. That's what the incident command system is for. We've done it with hurricanes, and this will be something we can very easily flow into at the direction of city administration.
Explain a little bit more about what that would look like.
So what we would do is we have our emergency manager, Brent Bloomfield, who is on a county conference call. They do those every morning at 10, so that's why he's not here. And we would enhance the staff at the EOC slightly, and we would start to put an incident action plan together and start to really capture all of the things that people are suggesting. We can get coordinated information. We can get activity boards uploaded in WebEOC, and some of those things like there's information out there that we're getting from the county that are in digital format that people that have WebEOC access, when we activate the EOC, they can log into and see, and all of those things, Health and Human Services is in there, schools are in there, all of these things are captured, and the county's already doing it. They activated this morning at 7 a.m. to a higher level. They went to a level 2 this morning at 7 a.m. So that's one of the things that we can do as the city to take it to the next level. And I think it's important that we're capturing all of these great ideas and preserving these things for the future when it isn't a pandemic and it's a failure of our IT system, or it's any of the other disasters that can occur in our society.
So that would be the proffered framework that, as Madam President.
That is exactly how we can do what
Okay.
Ms. Lambert's suggesting.
Any questions on that? Yeah.
If I could, Mayor, now,
Absolutely.
I don't think that framework would include, and you're the resident expert, so please feel free to correct me, but under that framework, you don't pull in, excuse me, outside agencies like the merchants and whatnot. So I don't know how the merchants would be included in such framework.
I think we can establish a liaison from the city. As each disaster is going to have its little niches. When we have a hurricane, debris management is a huge component, and we can expand and contract that framework based on what the issue is. We can absolutely establish a liaison or whatever that looks like, because it's scalable. We can do whatever we want to do to tailor it to the incident.
All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and take the steps necessary to get that activated?
Yes, sir.
And then what I'd like is for us to, or for you or someone from administration to educate each of the commissioners on what that looks like, feels like, how they can get a hold of, how they can forward to this command center inquiries, such as how do parents who don't have transportation, how do they get meals from the school board, and those types of kind of very detailed, very granular inquiries. I want to make sure that we as administration and the commissioners have the ability, have whoever the contact person is, and then as they start fielding inquiries from residents in their district, they can know that there is a central location when they could forward those inquiries that will get immediate attention.
We can absolutely accomplish that.
Okay. Commissioner Nearing.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm very supportive of that next step. The other piece to this, and one that you started to discuss, Ms. Johnson, is, and ordinarily as a commissioner, I wouldn't necessarily want to be in the weeds on this, but obviously this is unprecedented times, is really our 1,600 staff that work for the city, and how that both in practice, process, and communication is coming out, understanding that obviously it is a fluid situation. When I think about even some of the clients that I work with and some of the communications that have gone out to staff specifically around PTO and the lack thereof, but not necessarily feeling well and how we're dealing with that, not from a global standpoint, but really, is that a process of just getting with your immediate supervisors? Do folks have to worry about not being paid if they don't have PTO and aren't feeling well? Those nuances, childcare issues that obviously are among us right now with school being out for the foreseeable future. So not necessarily the details, Ms. Johnson, but is there a plan to communicate those types of things? Have they been communicated? Can you talk a little bit about that?
There is a proposed plan. In the meeting that we had on Friday, we got input from the directors. We've also taken a look at what other municipalities within Palm Beach County are doing in that regard. We have a number of options for the mayor's consideration and plan to sit with him today to walk through that proposed plan. And once he green lights it, we will then implement it and make the employees aware of it. And we certainly can advise the commission of what that plan includes. So we do have a proposed plan.
Great, and I think that is the practice now that normally hits the commissioner's email or somewhere or another. But as you would imagine, these are some of the questions that we're being asked when we're out in the community. So I definitely appreciate being updated on that. And again, ordinarily not in the weeds in that way, but obviously we're in different times.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Peduzzi.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'd like to briefly follow up on that. And first off, thank Commissioner Lambert for calling this issue, for putting this issue on the agenda this morning. And Mayor, I just think in this type of situation that communication is essential, and I would just ask that your administration continue to keep the commissioners informed so that we may in turn then inform our constituents, because we're getting calls and we're getting inquiries, and I think that sometimes we're just as in the dark as they are. And I'm not blaming the administration, because I think we are following the lead of other agencies. But any time that you get information that you feel is important for all of our constituents, if you can just make sure that we have that information too, it would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely, and we're trying to use whatever platforms we have, whether it's social media, email blasts, et cetera. And I think we've got information going out at least twice a day. But certainly we'll make a special point of getting that information to you commissioners each time we do that, either with a text to let you know that there's an updated advisory that has gone out so you could check your email, or if there's another suggested way that you want us to get information to you, let staff know so that you are as current as anyone else. But we're certainly sensitive to the need for communication of accurate facts and not rumors, innuendo. At this level, accuracy and truth is the best protocol. Commissioner Shove.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for our first responders for putting this together, and Mayor, for your leadership. I think to your leadership credit, you've put together an excellent staff, having Chief Bloomfield, Chief Mooney under the direction of Chief Adderley and Chief Matty, to really handle something like this, something we've never seen before. So I hope to see us, take a more proactive approach in disseminating that information as we have been, and really taking the lead to make sure our citizens are safe. It's the hardest thing to encourage community being a part. And so I think that's the challenge that we find ourselves in. Looking at some of the things that we have for our citizens, I think it's clear to all of us here that this pandemic is going to leave those most vulnerable citizens in our society that are hanging by a thread further down the line. So I think it's a really great step, shifting a lot of emergency command over to first responders. Perhaps it helps free up some staff to look at what can we do. Can we suspend any water shutoffs for our citizens to make sure that everybody has clean water in a place where they may have to be sequestered to their homes, regardless of their status? And how can we help to try to address those, childcare needs? And I think looping in those other agencies is a great way to do that, and making sure that everyone has food supplies to the extent that we can. But I think keenly looking at those citizens that are on the verge, the moms and dads that are working 2 jobs, waitresses that are not getting tips, those residents that I think were paycheck to paycheck, that now those paychecks are not going to come in. So how do we address that now? And also, while I know we're going to be expending a lot of energy making sure that we're addressing this changing situation, but always keeping that aftermath in mind, so that if we can start to craft a plan for what this looks like afterwards, we're going to have businesses, small businesses that haven't had business for an unforeseeable amount of time. So how do we start to address both the active situation we have in front of us, and if we can start to get a framework for a plan, I think that makes us more nimble after, just like any hurricane, after the storm passes, how quickly can we implement? If we can start to look at some of those options going forward, I think it behooves all of us.
And that's a very good point, but keep in mind that our fiscal resources and I guess our legal capability is limited. And I'm very sensitive, and I agree with you that with our city having as much of a tourism component as part of its local economy, as significant of a role that tourism plays in our local economy, we are going to get, the city, and our local merchants are going to get hit in a significant way. The social distancing, that is the term of the day, is going to hit us hard. And I wish that we as a city could have a magic wand to make all of those fiscal problems go away, but we don't. And I think the best thing that we can do as a city is make sure that we are as current and as wired in with resources, whether they're state or federal, that we can direct to our merchants and our citizens. And so that's part of what we've been trying to do, is stay plugged in at the federal and state levels to see what resources may be flowing down. I know there's some legislation that the Senate's taking up today, which is going to be geared specifically toward a portion of it will be geared specifically toward small businesses. And as soon as we have more information on that, when I was in Washington last week and had the occasion to speak to Representatives Hastings and Franco, as well as Senator Scott, the question was, how do we get the money from the feds on the front line the quickest? And was hoping that we could have a direct line as opposed to the monies having to be funneled through the state, which would add an additional waiting period. Didn't get a clear, concise answer, but the request was made and the interest is made that as those dollars are being allocated, we want them to hit the local level ASAP and not get hung up at the state. So we'll continue to work for that and to monitor that situation very closely. Commissioner Rouse.
Yeah, I'd like to echo my colleague, Commissioner Schoaf, with her concern. And mine is that in the event, and we've heard, and as you said, we can't rely on rumors, but we've heard that there very well may be a state of quarantine in the state. And should that happen, what are our steps going forward? And it's already been, Commissioner Schoaf talked about the water bills, especially for the elderly and those that are living right at the poverty line or below. What's our coordination with the school district? We do know that in our community there are 75 students that are on on or that are homeless and rely on those meals, and those people would likewise not be able to. Those children would not be able to go to school and more than likely don't have internet access. Can we coordinate with the school district to make sure that all those children within our district that do not, or within our city that do not have internet access aren't deprived of an education during this period of time? And so I would likewise, we have the resources to, we've heard about price gouging, and the city can very well have a hotline created in order to address price gouging, so that in this time of emergency, our entrepreneurial friends don't decide to take advantage of those who are in most in need, because that's precisely where most of the price gouging will occur. And so, I would say that perhaps a hotline should be created so that we can have law enforcement address that in the event that it becomes a problem and we're in an extended period of quarantine.
And that's a very good idea, and that's probably part of the coordination that could go on at the county level. Chief Matty, where did she go? Oh, there she is. Where there's, because I know during the hurricane we do have these price lines, the hotlines for price gouging, whether it's materials and gas and lean and stuff. Can you check with the county to see if they're going to have a similar type of
Absolutely.
situation? And even if we can have, will we have dedicated dispatchers or a call center for
Typically
this issue?
In the hurricane, we'll set up the call taker desk and we transfer the 822 number from utilities dispatch over to the EOC, and we have call takers in that type of setup, and they go over the frequently asked questions and frequent answers. So I know that the county's getting their line set up today with their hotline as well. So that's something we have done in the past, and we can absolutely activate that too.
Okay.
I think it's important to point out, this is a long haul situation.
Yes.
We need to all be focused on this for, longer than just the 8 weeks the CDC is recommending. This is going to impact us for months to come, and we need to be really prepared to take this for the long game.
All right, Madam Attorney, you.
Certainly, I just wanted to, just for those who are listening, let them know that the Attorney General has established a price gouging hotline. The phone number is 1-866-966-7226, and certainly we can take those calls when our emergency center is set up.
Can you repeat that number, please?
1-866-966-7226.
Okay. Madam President.
Just thank you so much, Mayor. I just wanted to thank Chief Matty. I'm definitely supportive and grateful that we are going to enhance the EOC. And I just wanted to bring up again that if there is an opportunity to involve community leaders in this process, that we have a great resource within our city to help us. As you mentioned, we're in uncharted territories. I think that they could help with some efficiency and planning along the way.
Okay. Commissioner Shove.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to clarify, because I think one of the main questions that I've heard is testing sites, and maybe I'm a bit preemptive on this, that may come out of the escalation of the EOC, but that will be something that we would be communicating out, where if you're feeling ill, you can go and get tested. I know we've had the first drive-through testing site open in Palm Beach County. So as that information is available, that's something that would be distributed through the EOC. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and certainly as part of our twice daily advisories that go out as soon as we get more information on testing sites, testing kit availability, et cetera. Absolutely. Commissioner Peduzzi.
Thank you, Mayor. If Chief Matty could just briefly address the issue of our current EOC activation and anticipated activation, should the need arise.
Sure. Currently, Chief Mooney, Chief Bloomfield, and one of our lieutenants have been out at the EOC staffing, keeping close coordination. My EMS chief is on the front lines with the state medical directors and all of the EMS providers, trying to make sure that we are in coordination with the hospitals and the other providers, so that we're all functioning on the same page. So, you know, we've been doing this for, you know, we've been monitoring it, you know, for about a month and a half now. So we've got a lot of plans in place that we have been waiting to execute based on guidance from federal and state leaders. So now that we're at that point, we're going to start implementing a few more steps. Chief Bloomfield, as I said, was on a conference call, and as soon as I get out of here, we're going to get that EOC fired up to the next level and get working towards switching the 822 number over and getting those staff in there to take those questions, and then we can include those questions that come in that we don't have an immediate answer for in those twice daily updates that communications is putting out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Madam Attorney, from a legislative standpoint, now I know that when we do have hurricanes, the city needs to adopt some kind of ordinance declaring a state of emergency. What do we need to do from a legislative standpoint to give us the fullest scope of powers possible in this situation?
What we normally do is the declaration of emergency, similar to what the governor did and similar to what Palm Beach County will do. Once you make your declaration under the statute, we are given certain authorities and powers that makes it more easy to address the situation as the needs arise.
All right, can we get that in the works?
Absolutely.
All right, and I assume we need commission approval of.
No, that's a document that's signed by you, Mayor.
All right, okay, well, let's expedite that, and certainly as soon as I sign that, let the commissioners know that step has been taken. I'm sorry, I saw a hand somewhere. I think it was you, Shove?
No, thank you.
Madam President.
Thank
again.
you. Just final thing I wanted to say is thank you so much for considering that. And there's a lot of fear out there, and there's a lot of unknown. And I think the number one thing we can do to help combat that is get information out there. So I don't think that there can be too much information as long as it's accurate, and we can help disseminate that and get the information out. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, I will repeat, commissioners, if there is a preferred way of contact that you know, whether it's text or email that you check frequently, let us know that so that we can reach you in a manner in which you can be notified as expeditiously as possible if it's something other than your city email or in addition to your city email. All right, Ms. Johnson, you have anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. Anything else on this point? And again, thank you, Madam President, for bringing it up. And Commissioners, I just want to thank you in advance for all of your help. This is indeed an unusual situation. But what I will tell you is that your stepping up to the plate as city leaders is so important during a time like this. I'm not going to get into a lot of politics, but I think you're finding out that we all are on the front line. And I think our citizens, our residents are looking to us, not necessarily to Tallahassee, not necessarily to Washington, to really help steer this city through the crisis. So I appreciate your willingness to be there. As Chief Matty said, this is going to be a long-term situation. This is unlike anything that any of us have seen. We've, as a city, have gone through hurricanes, and but you know, there's the ramp up to the storm, and there's certainly the post-storm activities. We are probably going to be engaged in and recovery activities for some time as a city, and it's going to be taxing on you as individuals with your families and your neighbors and your constituents. But they're going to be looking to you to remain knowledgeable and calm in this moment of crisis. And I thank you in advance because I know all of you are well capable of serving in that capacity. So fasten your seatbelts. Okay, thank you.